Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. Hey, Peter, here we are.
Good.
Doing it again.
Good morning, Bill. Again.
We're on episode number 255.
Bill, I have a complaint.
Okay. Okay. Send it to the
We
complaint
sold
department.
Yeah, but get on the list, right? You got a list, don't you?
Yeah.
No. So, we hit episode 250.
Yeah.
We sold a piece of property, made a nice profit, and I still don't see no celebration nowhere. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I think we might have to fix that, Peter.
Yep. We'll put that on the list.
I'm very proud of my teaching skills.
Yes.
When you say that, because that's one of the things we talked about early on. Like one of my staples is when you make big money or you do something, you go celebrate. You know, $500 dinner or $300 day at the beach, or something that like some havingness. Go have something. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Celebrate. So, indoctrination fully complete. You got an A+.
Thank you very much. Well, I like to have fun. I like to have things.
All right, good.
You have to reward yourself,
Exactly. Let's get to the podcast. Episode 255, Biggest Secrets in Plain Sight in Real Estate Land. Options fully summarized. So remember that we're doing a sequence of 7. Last week was number 1. This week is number 2, which is options. Okay?
Right. We're doing our series on deals.
Right. The 7 types of deal structures that we use. Okay?
Okay. Options.
Here's the description, Peter. There you are, in bed, wide awake at night, 3 a.m., and can't sleep. So you turn on the TV, and there is Carlton Sheets with all of his testimonials selling his real estate course. Then you go to work the next day. At lunch, you're reading your favorite magazine, and you see Robert Allen's ad on how to buy real estate with no money.
No.
And if you are around back then, when this was happening, probably thought, this is BS. You can't buy real estate without money down, you think?
Mm.
That is impossible. But wait, is it? That's how it happened, because it was like, that's exactly how it happened to everybody. Like, you can't buy real estate without money down. Is that possible? Is it? Well, it's like this question, because these guys were good, right?
Yeah.
Nowadays, Peter, the saying, buy real estate without money is completely overrun. And these weapons of influence no longer represent the richest veins of information. But instead fall on deaf ears. But today I plan to show you exactly how these genius pioneers brought this idea of buying real estate without money to light, to a point that you will fully understand it and have a very compelling chance you will want to implement this risk-free, all-benefit strategy to line your pocketbook quickly and effortlessly. More to the point, this one podcast, Peter, this one podcast is the pinnacle of all creative real estate. Understand this, and all the rest will align in your mind. positively.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Those are my words this morning.
Them's good words, Bill. I know what you're talking about. I bought Carlton Sheets way back then, and I still have it somewhere, I think. But I definitely have Robert Allen's book in my bookcase. There it is.
Yep.
It took me a few years to catch on, though.
Yeah, I get it.
But I think I missed some disasters along the way, so I might have been better off and safer.
Yeah, some downturns in the economy.
Things like that, yeah.
All right, Peter. So today I want to start off this podcast by rubbing up against a very, very deep-seated belief that many folks have and often don't even know they have it.
Ooh.
This is kind of like hypnotism. Okay? This what I'm going to cover in the next 3 minutes is like hypnotism. And I think most people on planet Earth at some time or another were hypnotized by this.
Mm.
Okay? But I single-handedly, with your assistance, plan to break that hypnotism today. Okay?
That's bad hypnotism, right? Bad hypnotism.
Maybe. You make the choice.
Oh.
Here it is. Ready?
Yup.
Expensive equals good. Are most commonly put in today's society, which is the most insidious, ugliest, most evil thing that you could say in creative real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Ready?
Yeah.
You get what you pay for. Now, these two things, expensive is good and you get what you pay for, are a conflict in my head.
Yeah.
How could
there's no room for like great profits. You have to overpay things, and where's the deal in that?
Right. Expensive is good and you get what you pay for. These are conflicts. Total conflicts and total, absolute, complete lies.
Yep.
Many want to get to the most benefit and pay for the least amount.
Yeah.
Especially with your time, least amount with your time, the least amount with effort, right? And stamina. You talk about this. In fact, I just wrote a new book. Mm-hmm. It's called Breaking the Real Estate Monopoly. Okay.
I'm sorry. You come up with great little titles. I haven't heard that one.
Breaking the Real Estate Monopoly, right? So, and I'm not bragging at this point, but just to kind of give you an idea of the intensity of my life sometimes. So I went on vacation for 6 days, and I wrote a 6,000 word sales letter for Sean for a course that he wants to sell, which is my partner. And I wrote a 21,000, I said 6,000 page, 6,000 word sales letter, and then I wrote a 21,000 word book. So I was going through some of our materials, and I was listening to you talking in some of our transcripts and some of our materials, and it's kind of cool some of the things that you pop out with, right? And now I'm supposed to tell you what I was thinking, and I totally distracted myself and don't remember. So I got a senior moment right now.
And you were going to say something good about me. Damn it.
Yeah. So I think it's mostly that. Oh my God, I lost it. I'm embarrassed. So it'll come back.
Okay. So
I think it's. Oh, I know what it is now. So. You talk about how we work. You did, in one podcast, you gave this analogy, like most people go to work on Friday, they get paid. Imagine if you didn't get paid on Friday. Imagine if you're getting paid in 2 weeks and you didn't get paid in 30 days, and then you're getting paid in 3 months, and all of a sudden you get one big check. Mm-hmm. Right?
You should live so long.
Yeah,
to get that to that point.
So it's a really good analogy. I mean, I forgot what podcast it was in, but that's what I mean by stamina, right? So too many want to get to the benefit too quick, and they shortchange themselves, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what happens is many want to get to the most benefit and pay for the least amount, and I'm talking about especially in time, effort, and stamina. And that's what I mean by stamina. You gotta have thick skin. Like right now, we were talking about just before we came here that I got a couple of apartment buildings, and I got tenants that are kind of giving me a hard time, and it's going to cost me thousands of dollars to fix it. But I know that what happens is if I don't have good stamina, I won't get to the end. I mean, these things have 300, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equity. Right?
Yeah, you've had them for a few years.
Yeah.
Huh?
So, anyways, basically, it's just our nature to want to maximize benefits and minimize loss. And it's not the only way to make money in real estate. When you do that, these are kind of like the lies, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I'm kind of fumbling around here. So I have some guy that's on Facebook that's trying to promote to me right now that he's a podcast professional. I think if he was a podcast professional, he wouldn't be trying to promote to me while I'm doing a podcast. So my attention was taken on that. So I'm going to forget about him right now, and I'm going to get back to what I'm supposed to be talking about. So,
Geez, stop interrupting us.
yeah, exactly. So I'm going to just back up. Maximum benefits and minimize cost is not the only way to make money in real estate. This distinguished and direct behavior is exactly what holds most real estate entrepreneurs back from hitting their full potential and actually becoming free from the day-to-day, workaday world and activity. Right? So they wanting to have too quick results too quick and all that kind of stuff are like, people's problem, right? So
Well, yeah, I mean, nowadays you push a button on your phone, you want an answer.
right.
I mean, everything's instant, No one's got patience. You want food, you call DoorDash. It's got to be
Right.
dash.
Right.
Hurry up. Who's got patience like that? A lot of people are used to being workers. That's what made me think of that because, my wife is a worker. She punches a clock, She's not used to waiting for something to happen down the line. So we got a new plan on marketing and, paying and instant gratification and long term. Get something in the short run so you keep yourself moving and then big payout later. But we're not used to that, most of us,
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. So I was reading something new, Peter. I was reading something new. I was reading some Ben Settle.
Yeah, right.
Something new, right? So he was saying in one of the books that I was reading is that, you always think that it's when you're in business and you're an entrepreneur and you're making decisions, there's like, you have to be courageous or, what was the word he was using? I shouldn't be doing this. I should be reading it. Or fearful. So you're courageous or fearful, right? So it's usually
some people say courage doesn't mean you're not afraid, but you do it anyways.
right.
But you got some fear, you keep going anyhow.
That seems to be the buckets people put it in. Courageous or fearful. So if you are fearful, you become courageous to do whatever, right? His point was that those are not the problems. The real problem, the thing you should be worried about, is commonality. Right? Like that herd mentality.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And that.
Yeah, you
that,
talk about that a lot. You don't follow the herd.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I found the herd to follow. I just don't like doing that. I know what you mean.
So what we're going to do is, when we're doing these series of 7, is we're just kind of getting you to think outside of the herd mentality, or, getting some idea that it doesn't have to be the way you think it is. And I'm a testament of that because I've done hundreds of deals in 20 years of transactions, and I've helped students with hundreds of transactions. So I speaketh from, experience hard-earned experience, I tell too many stories. I could be verbose, and I understand that because I always tell a story. I mean, you ask me, you know better than anybody, Peter. You ask me about something, and I tell you a story.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But it's very, very realistic that way, though. It's not just something out of a book. It's real life.
And I'm not afraid to give information because I know that a lot of people won't implement it.
Yeah.
So in this very unique and core training podcast, because that's what these are, you will have the chance to stretch your mind and break out of the herd mentality so that you can liberate how you design your life in the near future. And those are like words I wrote because I mean them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Desiree says it's the rule of selling helps people understand. That's right, Desiree. Totally correct. So what is this magic pill, you may be asking? It's called an option, or an option to purchase.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just used in real estate. It's used everywhere. Walmart at Christmas time has a layaway program, right?
Yeah.
That's an option. Think about it.
I suppose. Yeah.
Think about it. All right. So what is it? Because remember, when we're doing these, we're asking 3 questions, right? Those 3 questions are, what is it? Why would you use it? And what's the major benefits?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So what is this option? So let me, what's the word I want? Diverse for a second. Let's talk about the stock market first, because this is the best way for me to explain this. Even though it is an overwhelming topic at first, I will make it easy for you to understand the stock market concept, okay?
Yep.
When you don't want to buy a stock and own it, there is a thing called an option, which you can purchase for a non-refundable fee that gives you the right to sell that stock without the obligation.
All right. It's a much reduced price, right? It's
Right.
much less than paying for it. outright.
So if I pay $10 for the rights to an Apple computer stock that's trading at $400 in the current market, the $10 gives me the rights to control that stock, but not the obligation to buy the stock for $400. So if the stock raises to $450 a share, right?
Right.
And I had the rights to sell it at $400 per share, I turned my $10 non-refundable fee from $10 to $50.
The 400, is that what you would buy it at and then sell it at 450?
So I have an option to purchase at $400.
All right. Yeah.
The stock goes up to $450.
Yeah.
So my $10 bought me a $50 gain. Now,
Right, 'cause
mind you, you have to take the $10 out, so it's actually a $40 gain.
Yeah.
Right? So it was a $400 stock. I bought the rights to trade it for $10. It sold for $450. So I got $450. First thing I did is I paid the original Apple stock owner $400. I got my $10 back plus a $40 profit.
Right. And so it seems like if the stock goes down, you might lose, but you lose $10. If it goes up, you win. And either way, the guy made $10.
Right. So that's the next point. If the stock doesn't rise, but instead drops to $350 per share, and the predetermined time of my rights, because there's always a time period with an option,
Yeah.
all I lose is the $10 non-refundable fee. I didn't lose $50. 400 minus 350.
Yeah.
So the magic Mr. Carlton Sheets and Robert Allen were teaching all those years ago was this simple process. Because real estate works the same way. You can buy the rights to sell or control the underlying asset at a predetermined price for a special agreed amount time or period, and you control it. Right? So what you're doing now is you're hedging against a declining market, right?
Yep.
Buyer failure, life changes, and many other unforeseen events for this transaction. Right, so what does it mean to be hedging against?
Well, it's a little bit of a gamble. Things could go wrong, and things might not work out the way you hope. But if you only put $10 or $100, you don't have that much to lose. So you're gambling a little bit. But how else do you do it in life? You buy something, you sell, you do something. And I'd rather do it in real estate where I have some idea what's happening than a stock market. I don't understand that stuff personally. It goes up, it goes down, you don't know, and maybe people know how that works, but I don't have confidence that I could buy something like in the stock market and know that it'll be okay down the road. I feel better with real estate that at least on a short term I can run some numbers and think, well, this should work out. I just feel more in control, I think, than hoping somebody else makes it happen.
I've been asked, Peter, I agree with you. I've been asked, do I invest in stocks? And I'm like, no, I give the sarcastic answer, much like you do. No, I invest in me. Right?
Yeah.
And here's the reason why. And when they push the envelope a little bit, I say to them, look, why would I take $5,000 of an asset or cash, put it in the stock market, and have a yield? In other words, a spread or a profit, right? Which is all good, right? But it's not secure.
Yeah.
It's just numbers on a screen. So here's my point. As long as my $5,000 is in the stock market, it's working. It's making its yield. It's making its profit. Everything's good. As long as the market is up, everything is good. Everything is fine, right?
Right.
Why would I want to do that when I could take the same $5,000, put it as a down payment, and I don't do this, but put it as a down payment and go get a loan? Now my $5,000 immediately elevates to a $100,000 asset. It's not $5,000 anymore, it's a $100,000 asset, right? Not to mention, if I eventually want to get my $5,000 out, I can just refinance and get my $5,000 out and the asset still performs. Right? Even better, the $5,000 is like in like you said, in a safe investment. Right? Now, here's the thing. In stock, there is not a normal decline. I mean, you could lose everything in one day. The most decline I've seen nationwide, I'm not saying different pockets. There have been different pockets that have been been more. But think about this. The most decline I've ever seen in a real estate market in my 30 plus years of reading it and studying it and all that kind of stuff is 20%. Now, there have been declines of 30 and 40% in certain pockets, but they always rebound.
Yeah.
So that's why we use the money now, money monthly, money later aspect, because if you're cash flowing, you just hang on and let the equity come back. It's like one day, I tell the story, one day I was at my father-in-law and mother-in-law were here for a couple months staying with us, and my father-in-law was all, he's 80 years old, and he's like at the kitchen table with a long face. What's the matter? Oh, I lost a bunch of money in the stock market yesterday. I'm like, Bruce, did you sell stock? And he's like, he looked at me, he goes, no, why? I'm like, well, then how did you lose money?
Yeah.
And sure enough, 3 days later, it was all back again.
Yeah.
So I just don't, that's my take on the stock market. Now, I'm not saying I'm a financial advisor. You should even be listening to me, but that's my take on it, right? So, so basically, we take this money this $5 or $10 or whatever, and we have the rights to sell this stock. So we pay $10 for the rights to sell this $400 stock. Here's the magic. Without the obligation to buy.
Yeah.
So we have the rights to this stock, but we're not obligated to buy. We could just say, for, the wind blew, I woke up this morning, and, blah, 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 and I don't feel like buying it. Excuse me.
Yeah, that way, if the stock goes down, you don't have to buy it. If it goes up, you can buy it and then resell it.
So it's all gain, no loss. I mean, the loss is controlled by your $10. How many $10 do you want to put in? So do you buy 10 stocks? Do you buy 100 stocks? How many do you buy? Right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Gesundheit.
Thank you. I don't know where that came from. Okay. So it's all controlled. Okay. So now I do a lot of first-time home buyer houses, $150,000, $200,000, $250,000, and sometimes more property. Like right now, I'm buying a $400,000 price property, right? And I use because of my business decision, I use $100 to buy the rights. And here's the thing: by using any paper money known as legal tender, I have bought a very tiny sliver of equity share. So what I'm buying in real estate with my option, non-consideration money, is a tiny sliver. It's a tiny sliver of an equity share.
What happened? What are you laughing at? Who's typing?
Desiree says you're allergic to bullshit. Stocks are bullshit. Real estate is the right way to go. Good girl, Desiree.
Well, the one thing about stock, if you buy some kind of, kind of safe-ish stock and you just hang on to it for years, you might be okay. But that's like, just like putting money in the bank and hoping you get some interest. Right. A lot of us on this podcast and in real estate are looking for faster money, bigger money, sooner, more control, not just for someday when I retire. We want it now. So it's a different game plan.
Right.
That's my take on it.
Okay. So I want to go back to legal tender, because when we write an option, we have to give paper money. That's considered legal tender.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Which means, now when we do that, we end up with an equity share. Okay, so we have a tiny sliver, we're not going to be able to sign the deed with this share, so we can't steal the property from the seller, so they don't have to worry. It's a very minute share. It's a 1/100th share or whatever. But because we do that, that means legally we are part owner, right? So,
sure.
And like I said, not enough owner to sign a deed, but enough so I can sell this property without needing a license.
Right.
Because I'm technically the owner. So I don't need to be a realtor. I don't need to do any licensing or anything like that, because I'm technically part owner of this property. So I could go off and make fees, and I can go off and make money on this property and not have to pay fees. Right? Now,
sure.
I'm wagering very little for a huge upside or a gain or advantage without committing to buy. As Nelson Rockefeller says, the way to create wealth is to own nothing and control everything. Nelson Rockefeller says the way to create wealth is to own nothing and create everything. Now,
control everything.
Yeah. What did I say?
Oh, you said create.
Yeah. So the
controlling it.
The way to create wealth is to own nothing and control everything. Now, I have a few friends that I will not tell you their names, obviously, that are very aristocratic type people. These are like the upper end of. I mean, they're family. They're in family trusts where, their predecessors made a lot of money. They were in the government, all that kind of stuff, right? So they're elitist for all intensive purposes. And we had an interesting conversation not long ago about the magic of being an elitist or an aristocrat. And it really comes down to one thing. What happens is they know they make their money, whether it's through scandalism or through politics or whatever. Sometimes they get lucky, and they invent things like McDonald's or iPhones or whatever. You know what I mean? I heard today, Peter. To me, this is the grossest thing in the world. This is absolutely the grossest thing in the world. But I admire it.
Okay.
Amazon is worth $200 trillion.
That doesn't even make sense.
$200 trillion. They just bought MGM.
Jesus. The entertainment company.
For,
great.
I don't know how much. I don't know, $38 billion or something. I don't know, some ridiculous number like that. You want to know why? So they can manipulate the online streaming, TV streaming, all the movies. They bought James Bond. They bought all these rights to all these movies so they could be the #1 streaming company. And the reason why is they're trying to get you to buy a Prime membership because now they own Whole Foods, they own MGM, and they're just trying to monopolize the online space. And hooray for them.
Yeah. But it gets to a point. Aren't they getting close to being an actual monopoly illegally if they keep going like that?
Right. Exactly.
I do shop at Whole Foods and I do pull up my Prime card to get my discount. I do.
Yeah.
$200 trillion. Isn't that more than the gross national product of every year?
And it's
Isn't that more than the entire?
And it's
Is that
controlled by
more?
one. It's controlled by one man, as far as I know. I mean, I don't know if they're publicly traded, but anyways, it was just. Anyways,
It's crazy.
So my point is that these type of people, when you hear about them, especially when the government bashes them, like we're going to tax the rich, here's what they learned to do, and I've learned this just from talking to my buddy, okay, who's part of that family. He's one of the children of these people, right?
Yeah.
And he doesn't act that way. He's the rebel of the bunch, right? He's a down to earth guy. Is they make their money and they set things up so that the money can't be attached. So everything they do is so there isn't a liability. So they'll take the risks, but they won't take the liabilities. So they use things like trusts and they use things like options to buy or all these different ways so that they can't have LLCs set up the right way, and they put up all these filters or protections so when it goes bad that gets hit. How do you think Donald Trump, was big? There was this scuttlebutt about how he had all this debt and he put it on the casinos, right? And there was supposedly some scandalous thing. That was genius. So you got $20 million worth of debt or $20 billion, whatever it is, worth of debt, and you own 15 companies. You take all the debt and put it on one company, which is the casino, which has the most ability to pay it back. And if you lose that one company and you go bankrupt with that one company, you still got 14 other companies. Like, was that stupid? No. Right? So I'm way off topic here, but the point is when I say the way to create wealth is to own nothing and control everything, you need to listen to that because that's how you will succeed. And using options is that way. It's the epitome of that. It's like so magical, right? It's the free lunch in this transaction. The free lunch in this transaction is the rate of return with such little invested and not having the obligations to purchase. These are like basic laws of the very rich people in our country. This is how they think. This is what they want. They want a free lunch, right? And they want a transaction that has huge returns, but with very little invested. And definitely no obligation to purchase or have any liability attached to it. Right? All right. So hopefully I made my point there. Now let's get down to why you would use this amazing tool called an option.
Okay.
The most confusing thing in real estate is how I started with this podcast. That is thinking you need money to buy real estate. Expensive equals good, right?
Yeah.
Investing means you want to improve or get gain with assets to create more. That's what investing means.
Sure.
Right? So investing means you want to improve or get gain with assets to create more. Okay? Which is why I don't use the word investing. I use it because most people understand it better. So when I'm doing a quick whatever, I use the word investing because it relates to most people. But it's a misnomer.
Yeah.
It's used incorrectly a lot because investing means, or that language means that you have the dough to start with. You have a chunk of cash. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to make that pile of dough grow. Right? So you're looking for a rate of return. Like if I put my money in, how much will I get out? Right. That's an investor, right? So you would think that this is a bad thing until you look at what's right under your nose in plain sight. It's this thing called a bank.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what banks do. Why do you think they stay in business?
Oh, yeah, no, they're big on that. They push that. My son was a teller, and you think you go to the bank and put some money in, they hammer the staff in the morning to sell mortgages, to sell car loans, sell. They just hammer them. They want the interest. They want more. They want return on the money you're putting in. They want to lend it.
Right. So think about a mortgage. If you think, and we talked about this in the past, I'm going to do this really quick because we got to get out of here. So if you say to somebody, how much did you pay for your house? Oh, I paid $100,000 for it. You did? Oh, how much are your payments? Oh, they're $600 a month. Oh, okay. How long is your term? Oh, it's 30 years. Multiply. Let's do it. Six, and I'm making these numbers up. But 600 times 360 months is 216,000. That's how much you pay for your house. Yeah. So that means the bank.
That's how much you will pay by the end.
That means the bank is a 1.5 to 2% ratio of on their money. So they lent 100 and got back 216.
So wait a minute, that's not 3-4%.
Exactly.
Right? 3-4%. But you wait year after year after year, it's like 100%.
Right. So that's what they do is they are investors and they want to do that, right? So let me catch up to myself here. So the reason why we are called, or why I selectively use this language of a creative real estate entrepreneur is because we don't have the dough, and we don't want to lie to somebody by saying we have dough, right? Because most of us don't. Or if we do, we don't want to use it, because if you can't buy real estate without money, you're going to have a lot of trouble buying it with money. Okay? So the point that I'm trying to make here is that as an entrepreneur, we have resources. We clob things together. You know what I mean? We I know this guy and I know that guy and I know this guy. Like, for example, I'm buying a house and I'm kind of stretched because I got a few transactions going on. I got a lot of money moving around right now, right? So I got one house and I put money in myself and I got 2 lenders. Right? So it all comes together at the closing. So I got one guy sending 100, I got one guy sending 100, I got another guy sending, and I put in 40. Right? So it's like, we kind of stuff the deal together. But I did that. So I not only got all the money partners together, but I found the deal. I have to put contractors. So it's like we have the resources and we orchestrate this transaction going in and going out. Right?
Yep.
So by doing this, by being a creative real estate investor, we don't hit our ceiling of credit limit. Like if I just use banks, there'd be a point where they would shut me off.
Sure. You only have so much credit.
Right? So I never stop building my portfolio. So that's why I'm a creative real estate investor, is because I've learned all the different strategies that I teach to you guys. So I have multiple strategies of purchasing. I don't have just one method when I'm shoving it down your throat, like realtors. Okay. So I don't have one method.
Choke. Wholesalers.
Yeah.
Choke. Wholesalers.
Yeah. So I don't have one method of pitching you to my idea. I have 7 of them, and from those 7, there's a lot of derivatives, and we mix them and match them and all that kind of stuff. Once you learn the core 7, you're able to do that. Which, by the way, if you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com, right on the front page, next to the pretty girl holding the money, there's a free course there that you can learn about all these 7 strategies, right? So, so what happens is I never hit my ceiling, which is getting the most expansion with the least amount of investment. And who doesn't want that? That's why I'm a creative real estate investor right there, because I want the most expansion with the least amount of investment. Now I have time invested. I have well over $100,000 in my education. It's probably 150 now, right? Well over $100,000 in my education. I can't tell you how much money I have invested in the mistakes I've made to get to this point that I tell you guys on this podcast about. You have no idea. They sound like simple sentences. They're so simple they float out of your mind. You don't even pay attention to them. But some of them have cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn. Right? All right. So this just kind of walks us into the room of talking about the major benefit.
Sure.
Okay, so the major benefits. So let's do that, and we're going to get out of here. Okay. So does all this make sense? I mean, I kind of diverted a few times, but I think it was added dialogue to kind of help understand the importance. Before I move on, the importance of an option agreement is you are buying the rights to sell a piece of property for like pennies. So you could tie up an $800,000 piece of property for $100 and have no obligation to buy it and have all the upside if you just move. You don't even need to be clever. You could be the dumbest person in the world and still make this happen. And I don't mean to be insultive there, but honestly, you could just learn today that real estate, what the words real estate means. You could just learn that today and do this type of transaction. I've given $100 and made, I think the most I made is something like, I don't know, $28,000 or something like that in a 4-month period. Okay. Which, by the way, I don't have much time to talk about this, but think about this. Actually, I'm going to go over that in a few minutes. I'm going to go over that at the very end, because I'm going to tell you why this is so important in this current environment. Okay. So, the benefits for the seller. The buyer pays the fees, not the seller. So like with a realtor, who pays the fees? The buyer pays the fees. I'm sorry, the seller pays the fees, not the buyer. So with the realtor system, the seller pays the fees, not the buyers. With this system, the buyer pays the fees, not the seller. That's appealing. Okay. Number 2, the seller can have more than one person trying to sell for them. Like if so many times I'll have somebody tell me that they want to go talk to their realtor. So what I tell them is, look, go tell your realtor that you have an option agreement with me and you need to have an exclusivity with me. So in other words, exclude me from their contract. Nowadays, realtors are not they're cocky right now, so they don't have as much tolerance for that. But in most environments, they do. So they're thinking, oh yeah, he's an investor, he's not, whatever. So what you do is you have an exclusivity that if I bring you a buyer, then you don't have to pay the realtor fees. Because the real purpose of a realtor is they bring a buyer. It's not a consultative agreement like most people think it is. You're paying 5 or 6% or 4% or whatever you're paying for them to go find a buyer. Okay? So this means that you can hire me with an option, or you can hire your realtor, as long as you do it correctly. Or you can hire 3 of me's, and whoever comes to the table first wins.
I was going to ask that. If somebody came along and said, I'll give you an option as well, like 2 people could have an option on a property with one seller?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
I thought of that when you're saying that. But
yeah. But here's the thing: is when we do lease options, which we're going to cover next week, we don't do it that way. But just a plain option, like give me 90 days to go sell the property, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
The seller, number 3, the seller knows exactly how much money they will get. There's no guessing. Because you say you're going to pay 180, you bring 180. Right? There's no guessing. Number 4, we'll get you a higher price with longer terms. So if you let it go more than the 3 months, you want to go 3 years, we'll give you much more money. Right? And we'll explain that next week. Episode 256. Number 5, they get continued tax deductions while we're holding, because the title's still in their name, so they get all the tax deductions, right?
Yeah, we're leasing, but they're still the owner, so they would.
Right. If we attach a lease to the option, but we go any length of time, they get higher money and they get more tax deductions. Number 6, they get a higher demand when they attach a lease. Also, I'm going to show you in a couple minutes, just before I end that podcast, I'm going to do an example deal real quick so you can see how to use options and why it's a higher demand for this property. I'm going to show you how to do that, right? Also, we're going to cover next week in episode number 256 how the lease is attached to the option. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is the trifecta. It is the hat trick. It is the most magical thing in real estate history. What we're going to cover next week in episode 256.
Cool.
Number 7, often it's a quicker sale. And what I mean by that is that a realtor will want to sign a 6-month contract. Often we sign a 3-month contract, an option. Because if we can't do it in 3 months, we're not going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So those are the benefits to the seller. Now, what are the benefits to the entrepreneur? I'm just going to read these. I don't have to explain them because most of you know them anyways. But the benefits to the entrepreneur are no bank loans or lenders. Right? 2, no major repairs, because mostly we do these on pretty houses. Right. So if you don't own the deed, you don't put money in.
Yeah, it has to be pretty house. You're not gonna rent a property or rent an apartment for yourself and spend a lot of money on it.
Right.
So neither would you do this owning something or trying having an option on it. No.
So just to define my definition of a lot of money is more than $5,000. There have been times where I'll spend a couple grand because I know I'm going to get 10 grand back for a deposit.
Yeah, a little cleanup and just making it presentable, sellable.
Right.
That's okay. We're
So
not renovating the place for 40 grand,
Right. And borrowing private money to do it because you don't have a deed to secure it. Right. All right. Number 3, there's no risk except for your non-refundable deposit. That's why we keep that low. Okay. And if you remember in episode 254, we talked about the slot deal, which was a sandwich lease option transfer. The way we made that happen is that we bought and sold the option agreement. That's how we make money there. We're not even buying and selling real estate. We're buying and selling the rights to the. So we're not even buying and selling real estate. We're buying and selling the option agreement, right? Which brings me to number 4. It's easy to assign for fees, like I was just talking about. So you can, once you get somebody that signs, a seller that signs it, you can go find another person to buy those assignment fees from you. So that's why I chuckle with people that say they want to be a wholesaler, because they're trying to buy properties at 50, 60 cents on a dollar. They write a purchase and sales contract. And, we have a coaching client that does between 7 and 10 deals a month. And he's mostly a wholesaler. He's in Texas. We actually did a podcast with him a while ago. His name is Brad. And he was saying that lately he's been making more deals. And the reason why is because he takes himself out of the daisy chain. Like somebody signs a purchase and sales contract, and then, a person buys or gets signed a purchase and sales contract, and then they try to go sell it as a wholesaler. And sometimes there's a wholesaler to the buyer, or wholesaler to the buyer. And people
nice
have
chain.
And people, the daisy chain, and people are catching on to that. So what he does is he gets on when this deals start to go sideways. He gets on the phone with the seller and says, "No, I'm the buyer." "Oh, you're going to be the one signing the document?" "Yes, I'm the buyer." And he says that his sales have increased just by talking to sellers and telling them that he's the actual buyer, and that they're not trying. So people are catching on to that because it's like it's been like that for years. I know Than Merrill's been teaching it for 10 years. In his university, and there's others that do that. Dean Graziosi or Graziano, whatever his name is, he teaches it. So that's, my point is that that doesn't work anymore, but options still work. Options have worked for thousands of years. You could make as much, if not more money, with options and pay 90% of full asking price and still make money. Right? I mean, how many of those?
Yeah, instead of trying to get the property half price.
Right.
Not many people want to do that.
And then just assign them with fees. So you find a property like that and you assign it, and you don't have to go looking for people like me that have money that are set up or actual investors, which is a smaller pool. Now you can go look for the end user and just assign it to the end user. Right. So the person that's going to live in the house or use the property.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that. This is not like a needle in a haystack. I mean, finding the property, you got to find the right property. But once you get it, don't ever worry about getting the property. Like, oh, geez, what if I can't? Well, first you can just let it go because it's an option. But people come out of the woodwork to
buy.
Rent to own, lease to own,
or even to sell. I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. So let's move on. Number 5, a great way to learn the business with a little education. Do 3, 4, 5 transactions with an option or with a lease option, which we're going to talk about in the next podcast, 256, and you'll learn the business. You don't need to go spend a bunch of money for education. You do 1 or 2 transactions, and you know where you're weak and where you're not, and then you go spend money on those educational points. Instead of spending 30 or 40 or 50,000 to be on a coaching call every 2 weeks for 30 minutes, right? Like we did for 6 months or 3 months or whatever it is, and you get all done and it's like, what did I learn? It wasn't enough time, right?
Yeah.
Number 6, it can be easily a part-time job. Options can easily be a part-time job, right? Number 7, it's a perfect way to build a buyer's list. A lot don't think this way, but when you're doing options, you can build a buyer's list so the next time you buy a house, you may have 10 or 15 or 20 or 50 people that are looking for houses. You can send out an email or a blast, a voice blast, whatever you're going to do, and you could possibly find a buyer for that property quicker because you have a buyer's list.
Yep.
Right? Number 8, it's an excellent strategy to give suspects all cash. So let me give you an example of that. House is worth $200. You go over the concept of cost to sell, how much it's going to cost them to sell, which is between 12 and 15%. We use a worksheet to do that, right?
Yep. All the expenses.
So obviously they aren't going to believe you because they think that I have a deal that I'm doing right now. I have a contract with this guy, and he still thinks we're a scam. I mean, it's the most bizarrest story ever. I know we got to get out of here, but it's the most bizarre story ever. So I paid $235,000 for the house. We're paying cash, right? I'm going away on vacation. I write the purchase and sales contract on Friday night, and I send it. I'm leaving Saturday morning to go on vacation. So I take a check with me because once he signs the purchase and sales contract, I want to mail a check, the earnest deposit check, to his lawyer. So now I'm on vacation. It's like, I think Sunday or Monday or something like that. I write the check because I waited for him. I wanted him to sign the contract. So he signed the contract. He had all these issues with the contract. So my partner Sean, he got through all that on Saturday. So they signed the contract on Sunday or on Monday. I think it was Monday morning. I mailed the earnest deposit check to his attorney.
Yeah. 4
hours later, he calls and tells me, "Oh, I changed attorneys." I'm like, So I just mailed the check. So now what happens is, so I'm like on vacation, and I'm like, Sean, I got the checkbook, not Sean. So we decide to go into our bank account and send him an electronic check. Well, that takes time because they have to print the check. It's not electronic deposit. So we send the check. So the guy's like all over me. Where did you get the title search? Did you get the check? Like 3 minutes later. I'm like, dude. So now what happens is I finally call him up and say, did you get your check? He says yes. So now there's some legitimate. And I say to him, dude, you don't understand what happened here. I mean, you think I'm not real? Oh, no. And I'm like, bullshit. I sent your other attorney a $1,000 check, which, by the way, that attorney called my attorney and said, what's this check for? Right? Because I sent both of them emails.
Yeah.
I sent everybody emails. They have everybody's phone number, right? So now the attorney says, he didn't hire me, so I'm going to void out the check and I'm going to mail it to you. So he mails the $1,000 check to my attorney, right? Now the other attorney finally gets the check. So now I talked to him the other day, and he's telling me, I can't find your attorney. He's not online. We call the phone number. The phone number doesn't work. You know, kind of like I'm a scam, and I'm giving him some fake attorney phone number or something. And I'm like, wait a minute. I sent the information to your other attorney. He contacted my attorney, so it must be real. Like I'm going through all these, like, this bullshit stuff because he thinks that we're not going to perform. It's because, for whatever reason. Right? So it's just the way the world is. So
You said you had a whack job going there, but
it's called the nut job. He's a nut job.
oh,
That's what I keep sending my attorney. The nut job said this. The nut job said that. That's what I call him. So, anyways,
hey, make sure the emails don't go to him too as an info.
I don't care. I'm under contract. And here's the thing. I wrote a contract for 30 days. It's been like 14 days or 10 days. We're ready to close. I mean, I'm waiting for some money. All the money's in except for some IRA money. I'm waiting for it. It's already all the documents have been signed. Everything's ready. I'm just waiting for the money to transfer. We're going to close like next week. So we're closing like 2 weeks earlier, a week and a half earlier. And the guy's like, but I just want it done because I don't want to deal with him anymore. Right?
Yeah, well, once the nice thing about when you do a purchase like that, you don't have to deal with them anymore. It's not a lease where you're going to be with the guy for a year or 2, 3 dealing with that. That's cuckoo.
I don't know why I got off on that tangent, but let's go back to this example. So I have a suspect, right? They're like this guy. They don't believe that you can do it or whatever. You know what I mean? But here's the point. It's normally going to cost them 12 to 15% for closing costs. They don't know that. So let's just say that they think they're sharper than you and they could do it for 10%. They're not doing it for less than 10%. Just not happening.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So 10% on a $200,000 house is $180,000. So you could sign a contract with them for $180,000 and they're getting full asking price. What they don't realize is they're going to spend $20,000 for closing costs. Okay? So
that's right.
You sign an option agreement for $180,000, right? Because that's what it would normally sell for. You turn around and you market that property for $185,000. Right? You sell for $185,000 on an option, which means you have to give your seller $180,000. You make $5,000 for just finding the seller and putting the deal together. The seller makes out because he's not going to pay the full 10% because at that point, because you're doing paperwork, your buyer is going to pay for their fees, he's going to pay for his fees. So all they're going to do is pay legal fees and the conveyance tax, which is about 2%, if that. So they're going to save their closing fees because they're not using the whole realtor system and the because there is no negotiating, there is no repair, none of that stuff, right? The buyer's going to want it because they're getting it for $15,000 less than market value.
Yeah, because you have to pay all those fees. He doesn't have to pay $200 and then lose all the fees on top of that. So he's got a good deal.
Right. So the problem that I have is that I'm so good at teaching, and I'm not being arrogant, it's just because this is what people tell me. I'm so good at teaching, you don't need to have money to buy deals, that we miss this concept of an option, that we can go pay cash to a suspect within 30 days if they give us a 10, 15, 20% discount for 30 days. I mean, for 90 days. I'm sorry, for 90 days. The realtor's going to ask them for 6 months. We're telling them we can do it in 3 months. And oh yeah, by the way, you can sign an option agreement with us and still go get your realtor. Let the race begin. Because the realtor is going to market for $200, we're going to market for $185. Who do you think is going to win? You see what I'm saying? It's a strategy that we use only in high markets. When it's tough to buy, this is a strategy to work with. And all it is the presentation just showing people how they're going to spend the money, how the cost to sell is going to affect them. And when you show that to them and they logically get it because it's a mathematical procedure, it's not something we're making up. I can pull the filing cabinet behind me. I can pull deal after deal out of there and show you that these numbers are correct. I didn't make these numbers up. It's from hard-earned experience.
Well, anybody who sells a house finds out what the fees are at the end, not at the beginning of the process. Right. The realtor's not going to tell you, oh, by the way, I have a personal friend's realtor who was working with me on my house sale. She sent me a list and she showed me more about it. Not very few people do that.
Right.
What it really is going to be called. You find out at the last day what you're really going to be spending.
Right. When you get the settlement statement. And a settlement statement a settlement statement is just that. It settles where all the money coming in and where all the money is going out. It's a statement saying how the deal settled, how it ended. Right? So a settlement statement is kind of like a profit and loss statement for a business. It's like, here's all the money that came in, here's all the money that went out, and it balances. So this way here, there's no mistakes in the closings and all that kind of stuff, right? So when they get a settlement statement, usually is 1 or 2 or 3 days before the closing. It's when all these fees show up that they didn't know about. And now it's too late to turn their way back because they worked on this deal for a month or 2, and they're like, eh. So they're not getting $30,000, they're getting 10. And you know what? Even as good as I am and as many deals I can, you couldn't give me $1 million right now to figure out how much my profits are in any deal. And you know that because you're like, how much are we going to make? I'm like, I don't know. When we get the settlement statement, we'll see. I have some idea. It's probably going to be 30 grand or 50 grand or 70 grand. I got a pretty good idea guessing, but it fluctuates. I mean, I've seen closings that are 5, 6, 8, 10 grand more than I thought. And I've seen closings that are 5, 6, 8, 10 grand less than I thought.
Yep.
Right? And it's just I don't know. Call me a dumbass if you want. I don't care, but it's just a moving target. So, all right, Peter. We went a little longer than today. We went a full 60 minutes, but I wanted to make sure people understand this option thing because as we go through the next 5 strategies, knowing what an option is going to be vital to your success as a creative real estate investor. The beginning of the show, I'm supposed to go over some house work or whatever you want. Housekeeping. And I haven't done the last couple of weeks. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to give us a testimonial if you could, wherever you're listening to us. We broadcast this show every single Thursday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you go on to Facebook or YouTube, you can leave comments. That's what the people are doing like Desiree and this guy that's trying to sell me some podcast promotion stuff, which is not normally allowed. I will go in and take care of that as soon as we're off the call. So the point that I'm making is that you can go in and ask questions if you want any Thursday morning when we're live, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Either go onto Facebook or YouTube and you can type in the chat and we see that, or obviously I see that because I read all them. Plus, the last thing I'd like to say is in the chat of where, or in the description, in the description of where you are either watching us or listening to us, there's a link there. It's a short survey, but it gets you, if you answer the survey, it'll send you to my calendar, and I will do a free one-on-one consultation with you. It's kind of like a triage for your business. Like hospitals have triage. When you're injured, you come in, and they do an assessment or an evaluation, and then they know what to do with you. This 45-minute consultation is like a triage for your business. We'll spend 45 minutes together and talk about, whatever it is that you're doing, and then I can send you off in the right direction. A lot of people think that it's a sales pitch for me to sell them something. Although people ask me questions about stuff that I sell and I answer those questions, it is 100% about you. It's not about me selling you something. Most of the time I just give people advice if they want it, or hear their stories and help them, point them in the right direction. And it's just my way of giving back. I don't do it every single day. I have certain times in my schedule during the week that I do it, and you can get involved with that if you just click on the link in the description, and I'll help you. Okay? So Pete, I'm going to bug out because we're an hour and 4 minutes, and we're supposed to be 45 minutes, and it's not fair because I want to stick to the 45 minutes, and we will do that for the weeks coming. So Everybody have a good week. If you have any questions, go to Flipping Houses for Rookies, top right-hand side. There's a button that says support. Send me a support ticket. I answer all of them myself, and I will answer your questions. Okay? Have a good week. Over and out.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.